call you on the phone. I
Russ,
figured
can you
you
call
were
Russell?
enjoying the weekend.
Can you close that, Russ? Thanks.
Okay, ready?
Yeah. Okay, Tommy, you can open it up.
February 20th work session, all members present.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I know we're in the early stages of our agenda for the work session, so we'll see how that works out. It's a work in progress, but so far it worked out okay.
Excellent.
I have one issue that I'll bring up, and then the remaining issues I have are going to be for executive session. The issue is the Lapoli property in Kings Park. I would like the board to give me their consideration on reappraising that property. Matt has said that he believes the owner is probably more apt to maybe put that property up for sale than he was the last time we visited it.
Right.
And it's 2 vacant lots just south of the Kings Park Bakery, that little strip mall. And the last time we discussed it, same issue, it's about some municipal parking. I did speak to Robert Murphy, the highway superintendent, who advised me that it's probably a project that they could undertake.
Oh, good.
So I don't think it would be in their off-season, wouldn't be, that could save us quite a bit of money as far as him constructing the lot. And I think the appraisal is $1,750. So you don't need an answer right now, but if you can let me know if everybody's in agreement.
I'm ready.
Wait a second, $1,750 to buy the
Another
property?
appraisal.
No,
No, to appraise it.
I was gonna say, that's a great price.
The last
What did
time we
appraise
looked to
last time?
purchase it was
8,000?
230,000 was the last time we went
And the owner wasn't interested.
inquiring. He wasn't, but Matt has come to me and said that he thinks that may have changed, so might be an opportunity to take a good look at it. It'd be very helpful to all those businesses.
Yeah, I would be very
Parking's a
interested
severe problem.
to continue. Yeah, that,
Yeah.
Well, you know, when we all ran, we promised to help the downtowns, and we need to work on it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, everybody good?
Support it?
Make a note, Matt, please. Okay, everything else I have is for executive session. Mr. Lohman, you want to start? We'll go on the table.
Well, I have a few things. The first is I was looking for an update on the St. James project, specifically with the sewer line, what the thought process is there. I have a couple of residents that have already expressed their concern that if we move forward without doing a sewer line, it's a waste of time. So I was thinking maybe Mr. Murphy could come in and give us a little update on what's going on with regards to the engineering there, the thought process for a sewer line, what it would entail. So we can go back and, let everybody know in the community exactly what we're doing. That would be the first.
Okay, Robert, you want to come up?
Yeah.
What I do know, Tom, is on that, in my inquiries about it, the engineers in the county that we talked to, that I talked to, said that we really need to know where the plant's going to be sited, because we do not have one yet, and that will determine which way we pitch that pipe and what type of a system we put in. So I would let Robert go from there.
And the other thing they said was they have so many fallow lines that's sitting all over the county that were put in like this for decades. They're just sitting there. They're gonna be useless by the time they get to them. That's come out of the county exec's office, the deputy.
Robert, you want to update us?
Good morning, Town Supervisor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Councilman, women.
Coach yourself, huh?
Cashin has come up with a preliminary site plan for the road construction of Lake Avenue. And it's plan and profile right now, it's preliminary. It's got station offset, so we can start using that to maybe put out an RFP for a consultant to come in and take a look at what it would cost just to put a dry force main in, and then we could start going from there. Right now, we do have the sidewalks and the asphalt with capital money, and the water main, the capital money. So we're moving along as scheduled. I think it's supposed to start in May. The water main from Chris Newstad said from St. James Water.
We're still on schedule with that? May
We're-
start for the water
May,
mains?
Yep.
Yes.
And we're gonna coordinate to do the paving from Woodlawn South to Jericho. That would help with Chris's budget, because we've
Yeah.
had that in the road program to pay for the last 2 years.
Yeah, May 1st was the water, and then tentatively July 1st for the construction.
And we do have on the program this year, the little amount of money we do have, which we'll be talking about in a couple minutes, but the replacement of the curbs, there's asphalt curbs in there, and no sidewalks from Oak Street all the way south to Jericho. So we do have that slated. It's about 700,000 to replace majority of the curbs and what sidewalk isn't over there.
So you added that small piece of sidewalk that isn't there all the way to Jericho?
And
That's
then the
good.
replacement, because I think it's asphalt.
Right.
Sidewalk up to, I think Patrick's Way or something, or
Right.
thereabouts.
Is that on the east side of the street?
That is on the east side, and we did last year have money, like we know we had money left over. We had the town contractor, Reliable Tree Service, take all the trees down, so it's ready for the contractor to come in and start doing the work. But we would coordinate that with St. James Water, so when they're building the water main, that they don't rip up any of the new sidewalk and stuff. So we'll work after them, so when they're doing the house connections and everything, and then we can come in and just put in the new stuff instead of them putting in temporary walkways, temporary curbs and all that.
So do we need a different engineering firm to look at the force main?
I don't know what Cashin's qualifications are. I think it would be a good idea to maybe have H2M, because they specialize with the county, and they are working right now with Chris with St. James Water, so they would know where the water main's being put in, so where the sewer main, it would be a good idea to put out for an RFP. And they're a town vendor,
Cashin?
H2M?
H2M. H2M is, yes.
Yeah.
So I think it would be a good idea to have them just give us a ballpark of what it would cost to put a force main in from Woodlawn to Moriches.
But then what they said was, Mr. Scully said, we don't know if it's going to be a force main, and we don't know if it's going to be a gravity main.
That's why it would be
And
great to have
so I don't know.
a consultant give us.
Well, he said you can't really do it until you know what kind of plant you're going to have and where the plant is.
it's
So,
gonna be, yeah.
I mean, you could spend all this money and do it, which I'd love to have sewers, but if you're looking, you need to know that $80 million on top of the 20 we already got. Where's the 80 million coming from? We don't have a sewer district. Where does it come from, and who do you tax for it?
Yeah, we need to, we're in the talking stages now about a number of areas over there, so we need to do that first. I agree with Tom. Maybe we should
Especially
just-
if,
Maybe, let me look at a prospective location and then take a look at it once we find where it's suitable.
because if we did a 30-year, and I'm just speaking, 30-year bond on that sewer main would cost nothing to the taxpayers. I don't think, because say you do find something, it falls in our lap 5-8 years, you'd hate to rip up all that concrete.
Well, the
and,
thing is, what do you do? Like Mr. Wareheim said, is it going to be force main or is it going to be gravity?
That's why if we do have a RFP go out, let the professional take it and give us a good evaluation of what would work there and what wouldn't work there.
But you know, if you're starting in May, it sounds like time is of the essence, isn't it?
Just to do the asphalt and the concrete south of Woodlawn. I still think that traffic is starting to look at a possibility of some of the cabling and conduit under the ground.
That was
But-
the other question I had.
Right.
Has that been looked at?
We've reached out,
Is what?
I'm not speaking for,
Cable
I don't want
for
to
the
speak for
utilities
traffic, but
underground.
Mitch Crowley has reached out to a couple of PSEG and the communications.
But the water main would be started in May?
That's when it's slated to start.
Okay, but
It's underground, my neighbor.
then wouldn't we have to have all this sewer stuff answers before, so we do it together?
Coordinated together,
Yeah.
yes.
Our
I
main
mean, it
problem is
sounds like that's
we don't have a sewer
March,
district.
April-
Without a
March,
sewer
April.
district, where do you bond it and who do you bill it to? You know,
No,
I don't
you
think
have
the
to
people up
create
and
a
down
sewer
Lake
district?
Avenue want to pay a bond for 30 years where they might not have nothing from it. And it's going to be a substantial bond. How do you charge people?
Do you do a referendum, or what do you do? And then that's timely.
Well, from my perspective, I was asking because people are asking us what's going on. So really, I just wanted the information so we can go back and let everybody know what's going on. And if we can't go forward, and that's understandable, the money, there is no cited location for it, then we just have to get that back out to the residents, especially in St. James, to let them know, listen, we can't do it at this time, we're not prepared. And then down the road, if we're gonna have to tear up the roads to put a sewer main, if in fact that comes to fruition, then that's what we have to do. You
And
know,
that could very well be the case, because we're, as Mr. McCarthy said, we're not close to siting a plant, north or south. There's a couple of suggestions that have been made by a number of people. We don't know where the Gyrodyne development is going. That's long-range too, so I suspect we're gonna be doing the project and then worry about the sewers down the road.
And never forget, you can do directional boring,
Yeah.
and you can do rear yard sewer mains,
But I mean, that's
which will
that-
service the back streets also.
Correct, that's
So you have a
probably the
couple
answer,
options,
is
too.
that that's
Yeah.
where we're at, and
Okay.
it's of nobody's fault, it's just that siting a new plant is gonna take some time, and it's really a county issue to begin with, they have to make the approvals.
If we have to do the water main first because we can't put the sewers in, I'm not so sure I know a lot about the sewers, so let's say we do the water main and we fix the road, and 5 years down the road, or down the road, 10 years down the road, there's a sewer plant comes close. Do you have to dig up everything again?
You're pretty much gonna have to, like Tommy said, there is directional boring options and stuff.
Which I have
so
no idea what that means.
That's
They
just going
actually
under the
dig in the
ground.
ground, you don't even know
They
they're
go
there.
underground.
Every so many feet they dig a pit and they take the
Oh.
pipe 100 feet.
They were just doing it on Route 111, from 347, they're going down to Main Street.
So there's
That's
a
all
way
gas.
to do it, in other words, without digging up everything?
Yeah, they dig up a spot like every 100 to 150 feet, depending on the size of the pipe.
And then you put the pipes in and they go...
Machine
they
just goes, pushes it through.
bores it in?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Now, the possibility too is, the water main isn't failing. So maybe push that off a year and see if the sewer is materializing.
I don't want to do that.
No, I don't want to do it.
We've done the bond, we've made promises to the St. James community. I think we ought to go through with the project. Just, only because, in my estimation, I think it's more than a year. You have a long way to go.
Mr. Flynn was talking between 1 and 2 decades by the time it's fruition.
I mean, the people are gonna want the improvements, so I think we should do the improvements. And then if 5 years down the road, we need to take a look at suing somehow, we will.
well, this bore thing
It would be
sounds
great to
good.
do it the other way, but it's just not
One
possible.
thing, one option.
If we had a sewer plant in the vicinity, we could look at that. So, that's my opinion.
I agree with you.
Okay.
Because to rip up the
We need
district
parking.
twice or 3 times, these businesses are gonna be screaming just paving when we
You're
shut
gonna
them down.
This is going to be all summer, right?
Oh, it's gonna be longer than that.
One county official said, by the time we get you a sewer main in St. James, with the extra money, you'll be ready to redo that road again. Between the plant and finding the other $80 million. Because they're all broke.
When you do that, and I'm just thinking about the St. James Civic Association, they have different things come August. Where would you start the project? Is there any possibility the project could be finished up by the railroad tracks? I know Kerry Moore has the big, what is it,
Right.
summer
The
nights?
Greater St. James Association, Summer
Yeah,
Nights.
they do a lot of things there. Is it possible to, and I don't know how this works, is it possible to finish that section first? Or do you see that this is just going to be torn up for years?
I don't see us doing the village this year with
Okay.
paving. If water is gonna come in, I would imagine we'd start at, I think Christopher is a quart south of Woodlawn, and we would start moving north because of the season.
So you don't think it's going to get up there for the summer?
I don't,
Okay.
I don't see it, but it all depends also what the time frame of the water takes.
You know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
I know that
And I know
they're
they've reached
trying
out to us with all the parades
Yeah, they're
and-
trying to get that town a little lively.
Well,
They're doing a great
in the
job.
engineering meetings we had, Mark and myself and other people, they were very confident, and the outside companies were there, that they can do March 1st and be done the water mains by July 1st, and July 1st, get Lake Avenue done all the way through, and basically then next year do all the plantings.
See, that's a pretty aggressive.
Yeah, I mean,
because
that's what
it's 2
that's what the
Yeah.
engineer company said,
Yeah.
until they bid on it, we won't know.
Right.
They'll
That's
put a
exactly
time frame,
right.
you're gonna put a time frame in there, if they get it done early, they get a plus. They get it done late, they're gonna get penalized.
Right.
Yeah, we've advised Kerry and those folks over there that, you want this project done, we have to do the project.
Yeah, we have a couple
They
options for
may
them
have
also.
to, they may have to make adjustments. We're not gonna adjust the construction work around an event, 4-weekend event, and then it can't be done, so.
Well,
we've
I
let
know
them
we can't adjust it around, I'm just
Yeah.
wondering what the time frame is.
And I just had, the other question, and I'll let the last one go, was with regards to Nancy Featherstone, a letter to the board. She spoke at the last board meeting. I asked Mr. Barnett to come in and kind of just give us an update on that, as well as Mr. Jakubowski from the legal perspective, because again, that's a hot topic in and around the St. James community. So this way, we all know what's going on.
Russell, you want to adjust that? Thank you, guys.
How much is that executive? Matthew, is any of that executive? Is there any pending lawsuits or anything on this at all?
No, not yet.
Oh,
All right. Mrs. Featherston raises a number of issues, and I'll apologize ahead of time that this is a somewhat complicated topic. It deals with some coastal science, and it does deal with some legal matters. starting from the very basic, the bluffs have been eroding since the last ice age. And when that sand comes down, it moves. It goes somewhere. It's known as littoral drift. The sand moves in that area to the east. Long Beach Spit is a product of the erosion, the collapsing of those bluffs and the sand moving along there. So the seawalls that Mrs. Featherston has been speaking to us about, seawalls are designed to stop the erosion, stop the collapse of the bluffs. And the basic argument that she's putting forward is if you stop that erosion, the erosion of the adjacent properties does not stop. The sand continues to move down, but the area right next to the new seawall does not get replenished. It doesn't get the sand because the sand has stopped coming down. That's the basic science. Now, there's quite a bit of regulatory consideration with who gets to make the decisions here. I've met with Matt and gone over a number of issues, and I know he has his staff researching some of the finer points at the moment. But in general, the boundary between the incorporated village of Nissaquag and the town of Smithtown is mean high water. So that if activities are occurring exclusively landward of mean high water, it's in the incorporated village, not the town. There is the local waterfront revitalization plan. We have one, the village has one. And that calls for, both plans call for coordinating review of certain activities, so that even though the village might have an application before it which calls for a private party to construct something completely above mean high water, the village has in its plan committed to forwarding a copy of that plan to the town of Smithtown to provide us with an opportunity to comment. Doesn't mean that we have regulatory control, it means we have an opportunity to comment. Now, the problem arises that there are other boundaries. The village has a boundary 1,500 feet out from mean high water where they control navigation. They can control the mooring of vessels and the speed of vessels, etc., which is why the town has its code written the way that it does for navigation purposes. All of that being said, one of the other principal things of concern here is that mean high water moves. It's not static. Mean high water can move over time, so that if you go out now and you cite mean high water, doesn't mean that that's where mean high water was at the time that a structure was built, and the structure exists there now.
Correct.
Mean high water moves for a number of reasons. It moves with erosion. It can move naturally, and it can move because of man-made activity. Sometimes when we dredge, we put spoil on the beach, and when we put enough spoil, you'll change where mean high water is. The area below mean high water, out to the middle of Long Island Sound, is in the town of Smithtown, but it's owned by the state of New York. There are a host of issues with Mrs. Featherston's request. If I understand her request from hearing her at the podium and reviewing the documents, she wants the town of Smithtown to become involved in a particular application that is before the village. The particular application is known as the Wallace application. There is an existing timber seawall. The seawall gets wet at high tide. Now, when you build a seawall, it can itself induce erosion in front of the seawall. So you could build a seawall that could be above high tide. As storms come and you get churn in front of the wall from wave action, it scours away and reduces the beach in front of a seawall. So our records at this point, we don't have enough information to know where the bottom of that wall was at the time that it was constructed. We do know now it gets wet.
Russ, how long was that wall? I think it's like between 50 and 70 years old.
I don't have information
Yeah,
that says it's
because
that old.
been
That's
there
one of the
since-
things we're researching. is
Well,
how
it's been
old
there since I was a little kid.
It's very old.
Thank you.
Sorry, Tom. So,
You shouldn't have asked.
I know.
Yeah.
I just left
Gotta be
myself wide open for that one.
So we're researching, we're trying to determine the age of the wall, when the original wall was built. The applicant came into the DEC in the village seeking to place a new wall immediately in front of the existing wall. In that case, that wall would have now been in the town of Smithtown because it would have been below high tide as opposed to the village. The DEC did notify the applicant that they objected to the wall being placed in front of the existing. I have just received information the very end of last week that the applicant has submitted a revised plan to the DEC calling for a new steel wall to be placed exactly where the timber wall is. And that gives rise to the legal issue of where exactly is high tide and whose jurisdiction would it be. And Matt's office is looking to see if there's any case law. If you build right on the high tide line, which way does jurisdiction fall?
It's interesting, because I understand that that wall was built prior to Nessequag even having their own codes. Prior to
Well,
1965, I think the date was. So who was responsible prior to that, the town of Smithtown?
Well, those are the issues that we're looking into, as to when exactly the wall was built and the conditions under which it was built, and now the conditions that we face in determining regulatory authority at this time. Because again, whenever you're dealing with the waterfront, lines move. And generally, the courts hold that if they move in response to natural activity, that even property lines move, not just jurisdictional lines. So it can be very
I did not know
complicated.
that.
Yeah, you can lose property.
That's interesting.
I've never heard that one before.
Yeah, it's like if you live on a river, the river changes course and it eats into your property's gone, you don't own the bottom of the river. So there's a lot of issues here, that's why I brought it to Matt, and we're looking at it, trying to determine exactly what our jurisdiction is, and when we finish that research, we'll come back to you with recommendations. The only thing I think that I didn't mention at this point that is in this discussion is the public trust doctrine, and that has come up. Trust doctrine holds that certain lands are held by the government in trust for all of the people. And generally, the lands between high and low tide are public trust lands. That means that any member of the public has a right to traverse those lands and access those lands. One of the arguments that you've heard is that these walls, by causing the erosion, are depriving the public of access to those lands by making them disappear and go underwater when they had not previously been. So that's one of the big issues.
And that comes in under the LWRP, correct?
No, public trust lands actually go back, believe it or not, to the patents of the town and English common law. Certain lands were held by the Crown for everybody, for shell fishing purposes and rights of navigation, and they did not pass to private parties. The idea that we are responsible for protecting those lands is enshrined in basically English common law, and then you see it repeated throughout things like the LWRP.
Have we advised Mrs. Featherston that we are working on it? Yeah.
She wants us to build the second wall, is that what you're saying?
No, I think she wants the town, if I understand from her letters and her presentations, she wanted the town of Smithtown to become actively involved in the decision-making process relative to the Wallace application, and to possibly assert jurisdiction that it was our decision to make, because I think she is of the opinion that she's not going to see the DEC in the village give the opinion that she thinks should be given.
And she thinks the town might.
Which we do not have the jurisdiction at this time.
At this time, we're looking into what jurisdiction, if any, we might have.
Okay.
And Nessequag's been very thorough in looking
Yeah,
at this,
absolutely,
because,
absolutely.
and Richard Smith's a very intelligent man, and his board saying, we're not letting people's houses fall into the water.
Right.
And I give him credit for that, standing up for the people of his village.
Well, the argument there is that enshrined in some of the LWRPs is the idea, you see it when it comes before you. If somebody wants to build a waterfront structure, you'll frequently see the planning department recommend that the decision, the approval, be conditioned on moving the structure further back from the erosion zone so as to avoid these kinds of situations cropping up. you'll see the theoretical position advanced in our LWRP that rather than hardening a shoreline, you should look at moving the houses back out of potential harm's way. Well, those are some very significant issues with the property owner and the public as to, who bears what cost. That's the kind of stuff that you, unfortunately, when you do have jurisdiction, have to deliberate and decide.
And some of those houses have been already moved back 2 and 3 times. Where do they stop, at the street?
Well, that's a decision for decision-making boards to make.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You'll keep us posted as you go along.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Long Beach?
Yeah.
West, where
Yeah.
the big dunes are, when we
Yeah.
were kids. we
That's
used
it
to
for
go
now.
down the dunes.
Yeah.
Councilwoman?
Quite a few. Which ones have moved, quite a few of them have been moved.
I'd like to bring up the animal shelter, and if Mr. Valentine doesn't mind, if he could approach the table.
Good morning, everybody.
Good
Good
morning.
morning, John.
Well, I know I spoke to you about it, but I have this idea of having a phase 1, 2, and 3 meet with animal experts. But I didn't tell the board, so I have it in my mind. We've already pretty much finished the interior of the shelter. Just a couple of little things here and there, like a picture frame or something, but it's all done. I'd love to have a phase 1 of a handful of animal experts that come and tour the shelter. And we'll be able to feed off of each other, because, they know what to expect, they know what should be there, and I'd love for any type of, input that they have as well. Then a phase 2 would be, and phase 3 would be more in the spring and summer when we can complete the outside. We have the dog park we didn't complete yet, only because of the weather. The asphalt, a lot of that because the weather just got too cold. So I want to have a phase 2 and 3, and a 3 would be more of like a, for lack of better words, like more of a grand opening, a re-grand opening of the shelter, when everything is actually complete, and have the Boy Scouts there, and hopefully Mr. Fisher, Harlan Fisher there, who has dedicated paid for the fence for the dog park, and so I wanted to know what everybody thinks about that.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
We're still working as a global aspect of that whole entire facility, correct?
Well, yeah, I wanted you to add to that.
I think it's a great idea. We have been informally, the councilwoman has been directly involved with this, informally meeting with people in the field, professional people, and inviting them informally to the shelter, and which has resulted in nothing but, positive feedback. So to make that a more formal proposal, I think, is a good idea, and I think that as an entire community, we need to do that with regularity. I think that that'd be a good thing for the shelter. That being said, we have, not to interfere with parks, buildings, and grounds getting into the spring season, because spring is going to be here before we know it. We do have some smaller projects left inside the shelter, nothing that would interfere with rolling out of phase 1. And then, as we have discussed, looking at that entire piece of property, not just the shelter, but if we coordinate that with parks, buildings, and grounds and look at a global approach of an entire campus there, you have this huge parkland-like resource there between the animal shelter, the senior center, and the firematic training center, which we're on the cusp of rolling out improvements there also. So you have a large tract of land there, a beautiful tract of land that was demonstrated when we exposed the area that Mr. Fisher was kind enough to provide a gift to the shelter. And it just lends itself to a really nice park setting. So what would be better than to combine through walk paths and, the senior aspect of it, our local firefighters having a better and more professional and nicer environment to train in, and in conjunction with, the welfare of our animals. I think it would be a great thing to do. And, weather permitting, that's my main concern, is that we get through the mud season, so to speak, and keep moving forward with the outside updates. And as we discuss, making it a really an entire singular campus and not keep separating it out. We have too many fences there, a lot of parking in one area and no parking in the other, and things like that. So I think that overall, it'd be a great idea, and I look forward to working with the councilwoman and moving that forward.
Excellent.
What's the population now over there?
As far as animals,
Well, yeah.
right now,
That's-
we're, I guess today we probably have 12 dogs there.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and, you know, that's pretty consistent, the amount of dogs. It's, you know, 6 to 8, 8 to 12. There's no magic
Are
there.
they mostly big dogs?
Big dogs. Sometimes we have smaller dogs.
So
Yeah,
the
but
answer is yes,
I would
mostly-
say medium-sized dogs. Mostly that would be the population that's in the shelter, medium-sized dogs. And as far as our cats go, you know, we average probably 20 to 30 cats at any time, and then we have 20 to 30 in fostering. And, you know, we're going to be rolling out a more enhanced spay, neuter, release program. We made a grant application to do that, and the state was the one that encouraged us to do that, using the same model of our partnerships and shared services with our villages. We always conducted those activities for them, but we never formalized that. So they invited us to make application to enhance that program. That would include a separate utility-type building, you know, a health quarantine area for those animals, take them out of the population of the shelter, because that's from time to time problematic for us. And, you know, the councilwoman has, you know, worked directly with us on all of these projects, and, you know, it's a benefit for the town, for our residents, but also for the welfare of the animals that we do house there.
Very good.
Good?
Okay. And then the other thing, we had a Parks employee, separate from the shelter. We had a Parks employee come to me to speak about an idea to involve the town with a prostate screening day. He's a prostate survivor in his mid-40s, and he was hoping to get the word out to the town of Smithtown and outward on how, you know, how it's really important to get screened at the age of 40. A lot of men just think, I'll wait till I'm older for that. And so Councilman Lohman has also teamed up with me and this employee, and we have an organization called IMF Cares that put together those events that are movable events, mobile events. So we also contacted the Nesconset Fire Department, and they gave us permission to use their room for the screenings. So, did we have a date? September?
Yeah, I think
September 12th?
September 12th, yep. Day after
So we have a date of September 12th, it's a Wednesday, and there's going to be, the screening is going to be happening at Nesconset, all due to a lot of dedication to this employee, just as passionate about helping others. Is something that he didn't know was happening to him, and he wants everyone to go out there and get tested.
Good idea.
Could I, do we remember, I think not last year, maybe the year before, we had the free heart screening? Remember
Yes,
that?
Doctor,
He contacted me about a week ago.
Yeah.
He would like to do that again as well,
Yes,
so maybe
definitely.
we could
Put it all
combine
together.
both of them.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good screening.
what's his name again? He has the thick accent.
It's Larry Michaelranda, just
Yes,
the contact, but the
yes.
doctor was very good.
Yes.
He's a good cardiologist, and that was, maybe we could, I'll talk to you, maybe we could combine the both of them.
Yeah, that's the heart
Different
scan
days.
that they do.
The
Well,
heart
I mean,
scan.
they may be able to do it the same day, because it's going to be at the Nesconset Firehouse. They have the large second-floor facility that they could do the prostate screening. We reached out to a friend of mine who's a doctor who unfortunately diagnosed me with my prostate cancer many years ago, and he's willing to come in and be there on-site to work with the staff that's going to be doing the blood pull. So maybe that's something that we do it all on one day. This is Health Awareness Day,
Yeah.
and coinciding with prostate awareness. So,
So if I give you the contact person,
Mhm.
that'd be a good idea if we did it all on the same day.
I have just and when you talk about that, last week, 2 of my friends, different states, no signs, nothing, heart attack, stents. If I think that idea is incredible. I think the prostate, anytime you can do something like that,
It's all about awareness and getting out in front of
Yeah.
it, and certainly we have,
Unfortunately, that Hartford-
400 employees
I know.
plus in the town, so if we can put that out where it's a simple blood test and that scan, I believe it's a scan, what they do.
Is that
takes-
all it is? It's
a
just a blood
scan.
test and a
Yeah,
scan?
it looks for calcification in the arteries. I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
for the prostate?
For heart, for prostate, it's blood.
just a
and
blood test.
It's a DRE, which I'm not going to go into. Google it.
The heart screening was a real good program, more than I thought it was gonna be, when
You
they have
blew
it at
into
the
a
country
thing
club.
Yeah.
I can't think of his name,
Oh,
it
it's-
escapes me, but he did a wonderful job, and I think a number of employees, there were 3 or 4 employees that were screened, that went for immediately to a cardiologist.
Really?
So,
Maybe turn it all into a blood donation day also, everything in once, in one place.
Oh,
Maybe
you're
get
gonna
St.
step on
Catherine's Hospital
Kennedy's
involved in it too.
toes.
I'll get the
Yeah.
information
Step on the
and
Kennedy
we
toes.
run with both of them.
Absolutely. Well, Councilwoman
Oh.
Israel.
Yeah, that would be
Oh,
great.
no.
That would be great.
I mean, it's good for us when it comes to healthcare, or healthcare costs as well. Right. Excellent.
That would be great. And then, you know what, that's it for now. There was a couple of things, but I'd like to speak to Mr. Jakubowski afterward.
Councilwoman?
Yeah, I do, but I don't know if I wanted to go back to a subject that we spoke about, and I don't know if you want to go into executive session for that.
About the board meetings? I don't know, is that executive or not? Yeah. It is? Attorney-client? Okay, so we'll save that. Cavestein, that's him, thank you. David Cavestein, Dr. David Cavestein. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Robert made a suggestion before about the road program, where he was talking about Lake Avenue South, finishing up the sidewalks, which is a great idea, so you'll have them from Jericho all the way to 25A. We have to get someone involved in finding out if we have the property on those few. Most of them we do, but a few we don't. We're gonna have to get those easements done in place in order to do those sidewalks. So that process should be started now by the town attorney's office.
Can make a note?
But we own certain
Thank you.
property from the road.
Yeah, but it goes in and out, because they're very old lots.
Is there anything else, Lee?
I'm good.
No.
You good? Okay, I'll move to go into executive session on specific personnel matters, attorney-client privilege, and some litigations.
Second.
So we'll have to, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, well,
And the Lyft drivers drive for both, and they said they like Lyft. They get more money.
I move to close the executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I move to close the work session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.